you start on this journey on helping directors, direct actors?
I was thinking about this. I knew you were going to ask me this because people always start interviews with this, and I'd listened to some of your others, and and um, and I realized when I was thinking about it, I realized how much I just like talking about myself and talking about my work. What I like to do is do the work and help people, like you say. But I mean, the short answer of how I got into it is I was an actor. I was an actor, and I began to see that some directors were good and some were not. And I began to notice certain things. And I think it was and I'd come up from theater. So in theater, you do a lot of rehearsal and you have a lot of collaboration, and you never argue about changing lines in theater, but you can argue with your director all you want. So that's different about theater than film. And but I loved getting into television and getting into film. I loved it right away. But the first job I got, I had maybe the best director in the world, and John Cordy. And the second job I got, it was for an afternoon special. I was living up in San Francisco, and they used to, that's where I'd gotten started acting, and they used to shoot up there. It was a great place to shoot, right? And cast the smaller roles from the local people. So I'd gotten this job as Miss Palmer, the teacher, right? After school special. So, and I was so happy at my second job. That was very exciting to get a second job very soon after my first one. And I bounced up to the director on the first day, and I said to him, "Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. What shall we do with Miss Palmer?" And he looked at me like I had two heads, and he said, "Well, just do what you did in the audition. You were great." And I just thought, okay. There are directors who don't know how to talk to actors, or who aren't interested in talking to actors and aren't interested in hearing ideas or even talking about ideas, even expressing their ideas or having ideas. And they're kind of piecing things together like it's a jigsaw puzzle. So I filed that away. I mean, I was an actor. I wasn't interested in teaching at that point. I wanted to, work as an actor. And but I had been told by my acting teacher, Jean Shelton, one of my major mentors, a mother figure, if you will, that I would. We had a special relationship, and she always told me that someday I would teach. So at a certain point, when I started teaching, I remembered this, I'm sure very wonderful, I'm sure he did a very good job with this after school special, and, Miss Palmer. And I thought, directors really need to know more about what actors do. They really, really need to know more about actors. And so I started out, I was just doing an acting class for directors. I just thought I'm going to make it, once a week for 8 weeks. People will, they won't mind signing up for that. And, I'll just teach them some acting. And I had been teaching a class called Acting for Non-Actors. So I discovered that I was good at that. I was good at getting people to, I was good at getting a performance out of somebody who'd never acted before. And so I thought, well, they'll figure it out themselves. If they get in the actor's shoes, they'll figure out for themselves what's going on with actors, and they'll have more empathy, and they'll be able to communicate better. But people still kept asking me questions. They kept asking me, and the main questions were always, why do I need to know this? And how can I use it? And at first, I had the idea, well, it should be obvious. It should be obvious. I'm teaching you about verbs. So it should be obvious that you should use verbs when you communicate with actors. But it wasn't. So that was just fantastic. I always learned much more from my students than I'm sure I ever taught them, because they kept at me. Why do I need to know this? How can I use this? And so I thought, well, I got to figure that out. And so and they really pushed me to figure out exactly how, precise ways that the tools that actors use, like backstory, emotional, or what I call emotional history, verbs, objectives, what the character wants from the other character, imagery, subtext imagery, the things that are going, the memories and the ideas that are going on in the character's mind, and how those, how those could be director's tools as well, in addition to actors' tools.
So I'm going to tell you a story of when I first directed my first short film in
Oh,
college.
please do. Please do. I love to hear your stories.
So when I got a group, I went to an acting studio, and I went there and befriended a bunch of actors. I said, "Hey guys, we're doing a short film," and it was shooting in our apartment. It was some college, a bunch of college kids sitting around talking. It was, the experience of that I had at that point in my life. So we got all these actors together, and they came over, and we, had all my technical stuff. I was shooting with the cameras, and I had my little crew together and everything. Then the actors started they went outside they started like kind of yelling and going, like trying to shake something out of themselves, like blah, 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 blah. I had never seen anything like this before. And I'm like, oh my God, these people are crazy. And at that point, I realized, oh, these people speak a completely different language than I do. We are, it's like Earth and Mars and Venus, it's like, it's just speaking another language. And I was able to communicate with them, and I was empathetic, and I was able to get, to a certain extent, there was some result directing in there. There was some other things, on the nose stuff that you do when you're a young director. But that was the first moment I realized, I'm like, I need to understand how these collaborators speak. Just like I had to learn cinematography language, composing language, production design language, all the other departments. As a director, you need to understand their languages. But actors specifically, because they're such an integral part of the storytelling process. And then that's when I picked up your book, and I started learning a little bit more about what they do and how they do. Yeah. But I feel that there's so many directors that run when they get an actor like that, or actors like that, they're shocked and they just don't know what to do, let alone with all the pressure of trying to actually make a movie, let alone a bunch of actors yelling and screaming and doing things that they've never seen before.
Right. Did you ever take an acting class?
I did. I took a couple acting classes. In my day. I realized that I do not want to be an actor because it is. When I took the acting class, I realized, first of all, I became so empathetic to what an actor does and how they do it, and the exposure that they put themselves out there to do what they do. Good actors, at least, to do what they do. And from that moment on, I was always very kind in castings and things like that. But from when I became,
you're a kind person. And that matters. That counts.
I try, but I always realized that even in castings, which are brutal. I mean, I've seen casting directors shred, actors, and if I had any sort of power in the situation, I made sure to stop it. But I've seen it. I always made sure to be extremely kind and courteous and just empathetic to what they do, because it's such a sad thing, because you as an actor can prepare and do everything, and you might be awesome and you might know your lines and everything, but you walk into that room, you're not what they're looking for. And it's nothing, right. It's nothing personal. It's not a judgment on you, your talent. I'm looking for someone who's 6'5", African American, and you happen to be 5'8" and Asian. I'm like, it doesn't work. Your acting is fantastic, but it's not work for the part. Or I have something in my head that's not matching what's walking in. So I became very empathetic, and I think that's one of the keys of a good director, is to have empathy for what they're doing. I think that's the starting point. Then you build that relationship. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, I think that's very important. I mean, one thing that I used to tell my acting, the class I taught was called Acting for Directors. I taught it for 27 years. And this workshop and was limited to 12 people, 12 directors. And I used to tell them right in the beginning, I used to say, do you realize that actors think of people who are not actors as civilians, that they feel in a completely different world, and and that they're in a fight, they're in a battle, they're in a they're well, not a battle, it's fun, they love it, but so they're not going to get killed
Oh, I use the analogy of battle all the time. I always tell people I have shrapnel. Constant. I have a lot of shrapnel inside of me from this business, so I completely understand.
But actors, they feel like people who are different from everybody else on the planet, and that includes everyone else on the film set.
Which says a lot, because we're crazy.
That's true. That's true. But actors still crazy. Actually, sometimes I make the analogy to it's like teenagers. That not that actors are more childish or more less mature, less developed than adults, but the way that adults think they like teenagers, but they really don't. That teenagers are too out of control. They're too out of control, and adults think they love their children, and but they really don't like teenagers, and that I think that actors feel that way sometimes on a film set, that the people they love them, they need them, but they don't really like them. They don't really like that actors are loud and they hug too much and things like that, and they can be temperamental. And if they're not temperament, if they don't express the temperament they're feeling, they shut down, and you can't get them back just by dialing a knob. So it's so they bond together. They hang out together and they feel more comfortable, and it's you have to get invited into that, and to as well as to respect it and to see it as a craft and not just like a childish thing, that running around and being too expressive
and
pretending, yeah. Right. But to but anyway, it can be just so exciting for a director to understand enough about actors that how to invite yourself in, or get invited rather, and that's what we mean by trust, is that and one thing I want to say about, because one of the questions directors always ask me, they would always ask, how do I get actors to trust me? And my answer is, if you want someone to trust you, you must trust them. That's the secret. It's a very simple one. It's hard to remember sometimes, but it's a very, very simple one, and has to do a lot with my principle of opposites. I think opposites are, crucial in so many ways. But if you want somebody to trust you, you must trust them. And directors are often, young directors are mistrustful of actors. They're sort of instantly in damage control. They're looking around saying, as soon as the actor does something strange, they're thinking, oh, she wants to ruin my movie, and how can I rein her in to keep her from ruining my movie? And I don't know, actors are not like that at all. They really, really want to help. They really want to, they want to be, they want to be engaged with the director. They may want to fight, but it's ideally they're fighting over ideas. They're fighting over interpretations and not over. I mean, actors know that the director is the leader, and I don't think of it that way. As most of the actors I know, they're not fighting for control. They're fighting for ideas. And excuse me, I know you want to say something, but it's always good to treat people as if they're fighting over ideas and fighting over the work instead of fighting for control. It's always better to keep the focus on the work and not on the ego.
Yeah, gosh, yes. My latest movie is called On the Corner of Ego and Desire for a reason. It's about filmmakers.
Okay.
So I completely understand.